It is my great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker today, Jillian Wilson Martin, who is actually from Natick, the Sustainability Director in Natick, will be our speaker today. Jillian has spoken to us in the past. It's been a bit since we've heard from her, but she'll give us an update on what's going on in Natick, and I think Mark Ralston, who is a very active coach in Natick and a Heat Smart Alliance member, may chime in a bit as well. So Jillian, welcome, and you have the floor.
Great, thanks. I prepared a few slides for today, but not too many. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Absolutely. You should have permission.
Okay. All right, I'm going to do that and switch this to present. Let's see. Hmm. Okay, so I maybe it's because of the snow days making school longer for my kids that I've been thinking about winter a little bit lately. And I was thinking about what I could really share with the Heat Smart Alliance because I really admire you guys. I'm really a huge fan of the Heat Smart Alliance. And for a while, I was really jealous of the communities that had Heat Smart Alliance members when Natick didn't at first. And so I'm really grateful to you guys for all the work that you do. I think you're a really key partner. I'm super grateful to the partners now that we have in Natick, mostly led by Mark, and we have a few other members of our Heat Smart or Heat Pump team here. But as a municipal staff person, there's limits of what I can do in terms of how I can engage our community. And there's some like legal limits in terms of when I can talk about installers and what role I can play in helping residents make decisions about what kind of equipment they would install in their homes. But then there's also capacity issues that I have, and our heat pump coaches really do a lot in our community. And what I'd like to share with you today is kind of how we work together a bit, and also just some kind of thoughts I have about heat pumps and the where we've been and where we are today. So I really see the Heat Smart Alliance as like helping to heat up the neighborhood is what I'm calling it, and really like taking one home on a street that installs a heat pump and making that information known and available to the rest of the homes on the street and essentially like warming up the neighborhood. And you're building a community, you're building awareness about heat pumps. um, I personally don't really love working on HVAC projects at my house or any home project, right? I have someone coming to repair my fridge today. Those are projects I hate doing. And so the fact that you guys are able to connect in a positive way with the community and build awareness about new technology and create like interest in it and advance it, I think is really incredible because I think something that we talk about in these meetings, like at the Mass Energize conference recently, people are like, oh, we're like struggling to get people to sign up for coaching, or we don't feel like there's a lot of interest. I feel like you guys are supporting people on what's often a chore for a lot of people. And so it's great that we can create positivity and also build awareness around doing something different because that makes it harder to do that chore, to work on your home HVAC system. You have to now do additional work versus just calling that, trusted installer that you worked with in the past. So I was reflecting a little bit on heat pumps in Natick, and I'm not sure how perfect this data is, but I found from the Mass Clean Energy Center data on residential heat pump installations in 2015. And you can see they were about 25 installs in 2015. And then I think if I'm interpreting the Mass Save data correctly, then last year in 2025, we had a little less, almost 200 heat pump installs in Natick. And those are really only the ones that are going through the Mass Save program, which I know that there are many that don't. So kind of how are we going from 25 to almost 200 and what does the trajectory look like? I think that the work that we're doing together really plays a big role in that. And it got me thinking too about heat pumps and when they became part of my vernacular in Natick. And so I started working for the town in 2014. And it wasn't until 2017, actually, I look back, and I'll show you in a second at my emails, just like, uh, I guess, depository of all of my life is if I can search and find something in my emails, then I know it happened. But prior to 2017, I wasn't really thinking about heat pumps besides potentially a geothermal. I wasn't thinking about air source heat pumps. So those 2015 installs that the Mass Clean Energy Center has recorded, those predate when me, and I think me being the municipality, was starting to even think about heat pumps. So residents were already doing stuff in their homes, really the very early adopters before the municipality was there to be knowledgeable and support them. So this is kind of my trajectory as a municipal staffer since 2017 on heat pumps. The first air source heat pump email that I received was from Mass EC, as you might expect, and it was about their Solarize Plus program. So that Natick had recently in 2016 participated in a Solarize program, and it was pretty successful. We were able to get a lot of people involved. I think I learned a lot back then that has applied to helping to engage residents on heat pumps. But just only in 2017, Mass CC was starting to think about how can municipalities and volunteers do campaigns to like encourage education around air source heat pumps. In 2018, I received a grant to install a heat pump water heater at one of our auxiliary fire stations, and that a water heater is still in operation. Since then, we've been doing quite a few over the past couple of years. In 2019, we installed our first air source heat pump. Well, not our first, but like a pretty significant change in our library archive room, because we found that it was going to be much more efficient at maintaining the temperature range that we needed, as well as dealing with humidity and other issues. And as a community, we have a sustainability committee. It's now turned into a net zero committee, but that committee and I had kind of been going back and forth about doing some sort of heat smart campaign, like kind of like the Solarize campaign. And we ended up working on that in 2021 with a few different towns, Framingham, Ashland, Holliston, and of course Natick. And that was more of a regional campaign where we paired solar with clean heat, both geothermal and air source. And since then, I've been working with our heat pump coaches a lot on outreach, which I don't really show here on this slide because I actually am spending probably most of my heat pump time on heat pump solutions for our municipality. In 2023, we received a grant from the US Department of Energy to add a heat pump system to our an elementary school in Natick that has really poor indoor air quality. We're finally just going to be starting construction this coming year on that project. In Before that, kind of jumping ahead, I guess, in 2021, we received a grant from the Green Communities Program to install an air source heat pump system at our library, same place we have the mini split. And that's a modular unit. It's very large, it's on our roof. It was replacing a chiller there. And most recently, I applied for Natick to be part of the Mass School Building Authority's accelerated repair program to retrofit a different elementary school to heat pumps. So I wanted to kind of share that with you guys because I think it maybe is a similar journey that other municipal staff folks have taken as it relates to heat pumps, and also a similar in that we spend a lot of our time working on actual municipal properties and doing retrofits of municipal buildings. And the residential support is often like a secondary focus for us. And that might not be right because most of our emissions come from our residents. So there's definitely a case to be made that we could be doing things differently. One of the things that we do is we try to be out there in the community as much as we can when we are working on residential outreach. I would say that one of the biggest lessons I've learned is you can't talk too much about heat pumps and you can't always talk about them in the same way. And I think they're part of a broader conversation. So you can see here this dollhouse that we bring to different events sometimes. It focuses on a lot of different rebates and programs that Mass Save offers. We have a pretty good relationship with the Laminar Collective, which has done some installs in Natick. They actually recently did an install in Natick for uh, someone who writes for the New York Times that we were really excited about. So I get to pop in on their install. And it's nice to have a partner that you can connect with residents about and share research. And a lot of the first questions that we often get are around pricing, and I'm sure you guys get that too. And it's nice to be able to just defer folks to the Laminar Collective who can share their market pricing. So at this event, you can see on the left, we had a bunch of kind of fancy donuts, is what I call them. And we cut them up and we had a sign that was like, you can't see it, it's in front, but it said something like, take a donut, talk to us about heat pumps or something like that. So we were just like trying to get people to come and chat with us, and that was really great. So when it comes down to like the true campaigns that we've done, this campaign, the Metro West Solar and Clean Heat Challenge, was something I was really excited about, and it was something I was hoping we would be able to sustain. And I can explain a little bit more about why that hasn't happened. But I think it actually highlights a lot of the things that I recommend doing, even when there's not a campaign happening. And when I talk about a campaign, what happened for this program is we were able to, similar to a Solarize program, do procurement, like to get essentially bulk pricing for residents for different clean energy solutions, solar, geothermal, and air source heat pumps. And I wouldn't necessarily say that the pricing we got was going to always be like the best pricing out there. And we always recommended residents get more than one quote, but it did make it easy for residents to have an installer that they felt like they could trust, that the town had done some amount of vetting of, and that the pricing structure was really clear, and that there were resources in terms of active coaches to support you as you were kind of going through it. And as part of that program, we had a website. I don't think it's live anymore, so if you try to visit it, it's not going to be there. But we also did a lot of campaigns in the community. We reached out to local newspapers. We did a lot of 101s. This was like still in the early days of when Zoom was kind of like a new thing. And so we did a lot of webinars. We did monthly trackers, looking at number of installs, which was a great thing about having a campaign where most people are installing with one or a few installers. You really could see what was happening in your community versus the way, it's difficult to track what's happening through the Mass Save program in terms of how quickly you can sometimes. We had a Main Street banner. We had open house tours throughout the community for different types of systems, ducted, ductless, geothermal system, all the different kinds. And I want to share this with you because I think these are things, like I said, you can do without a true campaign. These are just like actions you can take to keep heat pumps top of mind in your community. Um, this slide is a picture of one of our heat pump pizza parties that we've done. This was probably our biggest one. We did this at the Community Senior Center a couple of years ago. This was, I think, our second. Our first one was also pretty well attended, And I wish I had put it on here, but I have a picture of my colleague picking up all the pizza, and it was like an insane amount of pizza. Um, for these events, we're about to do our fourth one next week. And next week, we're doing a heat pump popsicle party because our plan is to really highlight air conditioning as a real benefit of heat pumps because we know that's on people's minds. And for these events, we have traditionally sent a letter out to homeowners. Not all homeowners. We've used our assessors database to kind of pick and choose who we want to receive the letter to target. Initially, our focus was on targeting streets that we thought did not have access to natural gas. We don't have that exact information from National Grid, but we used our assessors database to see, or sorry, from Eversource. We used our assessors database to see which homes have oil, and we did some analysis to see which streets were most likely to be primarily not have gas available to them. So that was kind of our first filter that we used. And in recent years, we've kind of modified that. We've tried to cut down the amount of people we're sending the letter to. For our heat pump popsicle party, we sent this week a letter to about 200 homeowners who don't have air conditioning, who live in Cape style houses. That don't have a finished attic, and that haven't done any renovations to their home since like 2000. We had like a bunch of criteria, and we were really targeting our mailing list. And as part of these heat pump parties, if you will, we typically give a relatively short presentation. Steve Bright was, I think, our first heat pump presenter at a party. And now we've been able to shift that role to our local heat pump coaches. And we share pretty broad information about how heat pumps work, about the financial rebates and incentives for purchasing them, some like operating costs, like rough comparisons, and just really like sharing just information that I think is pretty non-promotional about heat pumps, which is something I really appreciate. And for the past few heat pump parties, we've also had the Laminar Collective who's been there and they've shared their market research and including their recommendations and best practices for installs for certain style homes. And we've typically had a Q&A, which I think has been like a really interesting part of the evening typically. And then another thing we've done with this is we've tried pretty hard to have everyone register for the heat pump parties. We have an Eventbrite that we use for these, and we try to do outreach after to the people who attended and follow up with them. Try to get them to sign up for coaching if they didn't do that in person. I would say overall, we could probably be better about tracking our kind of like I don't know what the right word is, but like closing rate with people at these events. But what I have seen in my role as a municipal staffer is that just recently someone emailed me and they said, "Hey, I went to your heat pump event at the senior center like a few years ago, and now I'm ready." Doing something to my home and I want to do a heat pump. Like, what do I do? And I remind them about the heat pump coaches and try to kind of get them connected to them. Let's see, did I advance too far now? The other thing that I wanted to share is that we try to keep heat pumps part of a bigger story about clean energy and the things that homeowners can do. This is a public art installation we have up right now in Natick that we received a massive community education grant to complete. The artists are on the right, Julia Sesko and Raquel Fornasaro. And if you look on the left side, you see this, it looks like a house, a corner of a house, and the shingles were all painted by members of the community. And the shingles there's a lot of layers of information on this, but the shingles tell the story of home energy conservation. And we were able to use a tool from MIT that shows how each step you take on your energy conservation journey, including heat pumps, which are the blue band, get you closer to net zero, which was cool. And it just creates new ways to talk to people. Um, this slide is just a slide that I wanted to call out for you because it has just things that are top of mind for me for resources that could be available for your community. These are all resources I've used to try to support our heat pump coaches and getting the word out. And
Whoops, I hope we didn't lose Jillian. Let's give her a minute to come back. In the meantime, Mark, do you have anything you'd like to add to what Jillian said so far? Mark Ralston?
Just, it's been great working with Jillian. I mean, she's a dynamo, and her monthly newsletters, I think are a real one of the ways that we have really generated as many requests coming in as we have.
Mark, where is that public art installation that she just had up?
It's in front of the Morse Institute Library
Okay,
in downtown Natick, right on the common there.
West Main Street there?
It's on Central.
Okay.
Yeah, Mark, remind us how many, hopefully that's she coming back.
hey, I'm back, but my computer is not back. I think
Oh dear.
it's okay. It's one of those things. Something happened to it. I guess I could stop talking and see if anyone has questions. I hope that some of the information I shared is helpful in inspiring folks in their efforts to do outreach in their communities.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and open up the floor for discussion and Mark, feel free to pitch in and help out.
We're all planning to come over and look at your art installation. We were getting directions while you were off there.
Oh, good. Well, we actually have a opening or like a celebration of it on June 25th at 4:30. So you're all welcome to come to that. And it's at the Morse Institute Library.
Steve, did you have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, hi Jillian, it's Steve Bright. Question for you about the funding. I think the Green Communities Fund originally provided a lot of funding for municipal sustainability managers, and I assume that's still the case. And as you said, the focus initially was on municipal buildings. Can you sort of, stepping back, are in general, is there more support now from the state for outreach to residents by the sustainability managers?
I would say that Green Communities does offer the funding to help support that. And the utilities do have a municipal energy manager program that they support now too. I think a lot of the ever like in terms of the utility support, that's really, I think, contingent on what happens with the Mass Save program. But in this past year, there's been quite a few new municipal energy managers, and I've been part of a few special training programs that MAPC and others have created to help get them on their feet, and get them running, which has been really great. When it comes to residential outreach, Green Communities does allow you to apply for funds to support that, but I personally really struggle to want to apply for those funds because I have so many municipal buildings that I want to do projects to that we could really use the capital money to support. So for me, it's hard to justify that.
And if the Heat Smart Alliance wants to reach out to more sustainability managers to engage more communities, you mentioned that the MAPC is active in sort of providing training. Are they the go-to organization, or are there other organizations we should be talking to about reaching out to more communities?
I think they are pretty much the go-to organization, and they're the 101 cities and towns around Boston, so they don't include the Western Massachusetts, but they are working with the other planning agencies on those trainings. The other thing is we have a pretty robust network of sustainability staff on this kind of listserv, and we meet every month. And I would be happy to invite folks to a call if you guys wanted to give a pitch about the Heat Smart Alliance and how you can work with municipal energy managers more. I would be happy to help coordinate that.
Oh, that'd be
That's
super. Yeah. Thank you. Go ahead, Tom.
Hi, Jillian. Tom Siaka. I'm a member of Wayland's Energy and Climate Committee. We've worked with you in the past. Couple of questions. You talked about a school air source heat pump project. You got the grant in 2023, but construction isn't starting till like now, I think you said. Is that was a federal grant, you said? Is that still alive?
Yeah, that's why it's not starting yet. Or it's so close to starting. We thought we were going to do construction this summer. We did. That's a grant that I'm like, yay, I'm so happy I got it. But am I, it's a grant that was from the Department of Energy. It was one of the first grants related to the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, and it included the cost of design. So the first phase was design, and that happened in 2024. And then in 2025, when there was the change in the federal administration, then that grant went on hold for over a year. And then we were just able to get approval to move into construction, and we got our contractor. We had to go out to bid. It's a very large project. It's about $2.5 million because it includes more than just the heat pump. And now we have to make sure we're meeting all of these by BABA requirements, Build America, Buy America, basically like American-made requirements. And I think that's going to make us not actually start construction until next year because we have to get waivers for all of those. So it'll be interesting.
So you hit a bunch of hurdles, but it looks like the money's gonna be there after all.
We got an updated contract from the government, the current administration. We got it couple of weeks ago. So yeah, I was really, really excited.
Okay, interesting. So another question, you talked about target marketing using assessors data. Um, I know in my town, it would be hard to do that because the assessors are understaffed and overworked, and I don't think we could just get, individual access to the database to play around. How did you do that process-wise?
So I think you could still get it actually. I just asked for the data for all of the properties, and it's been really easy for my assessor to pull. Um, Probably that data is just sitting there. Most communities have a website that you can look at where you can actually examine all their assessor data. It's just difficult to look at it in aggregate. Like we have, if you Google Natick Map Geo, you can find our map of the town that looks at each parcel and has the assessor data associated with it. And I found that pretty much every town has something similar. So I think it's just the database they pull from, and we do all of the filtering of the data. We just get the like master data file, and it's public record, so they kind of have to share it with you.
Oh, yeah, I know the data is available. I mean, I can look at it, but you you don't go through it manually, I'm assuming.
It's in Excel, and I just filter it.
Oh, okay. All right, thanks.
Fran, go ahead.
Hi, I put my question in the chat. I don't know if you can see that, but my question was about, you mentioned geothermal a couple times as you started talking. And I was wondering, what do your numbers look like if you track geothermal separate from air source heat pumps? And has it been changing over time? And what are you learning? I mean, I understand how expensive they are and how it's a whole different proposition, but I'm trying to think of how we get more of that and move toward energy networks and geothermal networks from just air source. So you may have some learning that we could benefit from.
I wish I had some learning to share on it. I would say that I don't have a good pulse on how many geothermal systems are installed in Natick for a few reasons. One, the mass save data, they don't give you information if there's less than 100 of a certain type of measure that's done, because they think that could somehow like make the data like non-anonymous. So we can't figure that out from mass save data. I could look at permit data, which I haven't really actively tried to do. What I will say, just from speaking with people in town, is that I've found we have seen geothermal installations more with like new construction. And usually it's more like when the homeowner. And then
We lost
I
a bit of that, Jillian.
can you hear me now? Sorry. Can you hear me again?
We can hear you.
Okay, great. So I would say that I am really excited about what's happening in Framingham with their network geothermal project. I'm really excited that it's my neighbor who's like part of it. You know, Framingham being next to Natick, and we had actually applied to be part of that program, and we saw that it wasn't really a good fit for us, their criteria. And I said to Sean in Framingham, Sean, like, you gotta get this because you're perfect for it, and we really want it to not just be like in the city of Boston, right? We need to see how this works in the suburbs. And they're learning a lot, and they're working to expand it, and they still have funding to expand it. So I think we'll just keep learning from them. But yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have a lot of great insights.
Go
Thanks.
ahead, Lisa.
Hi, Jillian. Thanks so much for your presentation and all the great work you're doing in Natick, and nice to see you again. I have a question about your group purchase. I'm wondering, first of all, did you work with Laminar Collective to decide on the manufacturer and equipment type? And then did you pre-purchase the equipment, or did you wait and get subscribers before you purchased it? And just in general, how did that work out? And would you recommend, is there like a critical mass either for town size or number of expected installations that you would suggest as a good starting point?
Okay, yeah. So it worked a little different than I think you're thinking. So basically, the town procured um, almost like a preferred installer for residents, where we didn't purchase any equipment, and it was a no cost contract to the town. So basically, the benefit to the installer was that we were essentially supporting them in promoting their company at a certain price that they negotiated or that they submitted to us. And we did that procurement through our request for proposals type of procurement process. And I really found it to be great. I think it's nice to partner with other communities to just have capacity to do more outreach and also to have just more residents be potential customers for the installer. It helps make it more interesting to them. We haven't repeated that because we aren't sure really if the way we had been doing it was the right way to do it from a procurement perspective. So we had been talking with MAPC about kind of taking our model and making it something that was like sustaining and that many communities could participate in. And we hadn't figured out the right procurement pathway to do that. So that's kind of why we stepped away from that approach. And at the same time, I would say that like the market has definitely changed since then. There's a lot more installers than there were available back in 2021. And the Laminar Collective, they didn't actually exist in 2021. So I think things are pretty different. And I'm not sure if the market forces are really like pushing for a municipality to kind of like take that leadership role.
Interesting.
That makes sense. Thanks.
Badri, go ahead.
Hi, Jillian, thanks for the presentation. You made a comment, and this is more the important point, is that most town municipal operations-based sustainability effort is on the municipal operations, particularly, and they are grant challenged in many ways. I have two-part questions. The first one is, how are you handling the road mapping and transformation efforts to air source or to cleaner heat in the capital planning process or FinCom or select board equivalents? How are you handling that conversation when there is no grant available to convert, and especially if you're coming up to equipment renewal, so to speak? A critical point, and I echo the fact, for example, I had to speak out at town meeting in Chelmsford regarding a replacement for the library, which they seem to be thinking about redoing the gas all over again with more efficient gas as a basis, and not they balk at going to geothermal or air source at this point. So I'm just trying to understand that a bit better. As a background to that. The second part of the question will be, you've tried to reach through the assessors database on converting the residents, and having some pizza parties kind of a thing approach. Have you revisited and wanting to run another, I don't know, like Solarize, as you mentioned, another heat campaign on a regular basis to pump up the residential interest, essentially? So would you be able to comment on that, please? Thank you.
Sure. On the first question, I would say I don't always win on that. I try really hard to be really aware of what's happening in our capital plan. And I would say that's like my number one strategy is knowing what's coming and being prepared for it. So in Natick, we have a number of buildings that were built in the 1990s. And I know that all of those buildings need new HVAC systems, right? And so with that information in hand, we built our decarbonization roadmap for our municipal and school buildings. And that roadmap is something that's a requirement to become a climate leader, which is that new state program for municipalities. And that unlocks new grant opportunities for municipalities to retrofit their buildings. As part of that, that's a program where you get free technical assistance to build this roadmap. And it's heavily based on the age of the equipment that you have, and when opportunities to decarbonize that equipment will come up. It doesn't commit you to actually doing that work, but you do have to have your school committee and your select board vote to support and essentially adopt that roadmap. So right now, so I told you about the Benham project that is the federal grant project. I have literally been working on that project since 2014. And I can say that because that's when I went into Benham for the first time, and the upstairs classrooms were insanely hot, and everyone was like essentially drenched in sweat, and teachers were using like cold um, like washcloths to like put on the back of students' necks. And I was like, wow, this is not what I thought was happening in our elementary schools. And so that's when we identified a problem about cooling. And then we also saw that the building was using an insane amount of energy. And so it takes a very long time to get from a problem to a solution. And that includes funding as well as design and a plan. And so I really just try to stay ahead of the game with the capital plan. I will tell you that, we worked on the library, we're working on Benham, we're working on Lilja next. We're building a new Memorial Elementary School, hopefully in the coming years. I'm trying to get ahead of that with the building committee. But I've lost plenty of battles. Our Kennedy Middle School is on gas. That's a new middle school that opened in 2021. We had boilers fail at our senior center, and we replaced them with different kinds of boilers. And we have a different elementary school that is the twin school to Lilja, that the boilers is called Brown Elementary School. That one will probably have new natural gas boilers. So the reality is it's really hard, and it's really expensive. And I guess the last like soapbox thing I'll say about it is that I try really hard to get funding to support these projects. So for the Benham project, not only are we getting that grant, we're also qualified for a $500,000 incentive from Eversource for the heat pump project. So I'm trying to like really be part of like nagging in the beginning and throughout, and also like finding that money, because it's really hard to say no when you find that money. And then your other question, I am interested in doing another program like the Solarized type program. I'm not sure the right way to do it. So if anyone figures that out for me, let me know and I'll copy you, because like I hope one thing you take away from this today too is my personal motto in this role with other communities is copy and paste, because I really feel very strongly that we have 301 cities and towns in Massachusetts, and all of us are basically needing to do the same thing. So I don't see any point in reinventing the wheel. So for all the resources I have, like the letter that we recently sent to homeowners who were inviting to the heat pump party, like presentations, like they're all available for you to use. It's public record. I have no like pride in ownership of them. So let me know how I can help you.
Thank you, Jillian. The key question I would like this group to think about, and especially if it's municipal, I wonder if any one of your capital planning groups, or whether you yourself, as part of the capital planning process, is incorporating, at least for municipal operations, the social cost of carbon equivalents when computing whether or not future operational costs and are being mitigated appropriately. Because of installation of gas, we become variable to what gas supply charges are and what the utilities demand in conveyance and the maintenance of the background infrastructure too. But I wonder if that's taken into account itself, given new equipment lifetimes, which are at least supposed to be 20 years to 25 years as a infrastructure. So I wonder that, and maybe that's an offline conversation. I'm happy to have you all reach out to me just at my first name at chelmsfordma.gov. And if there's thoughts that you want to banter about, I'd love to maybe begin to think about it and see what and how we take social cost of carbon true impact, even though it's not directly applicable immediately to our community as a negative effect, but it's the negative effect that we put out as part of it. So maybe it's a conversation to be had.
I think it's a great idea. I would just say that I don't think right now that's really happening. in many municipalities. The municipalities that I know that actually consider sustainability even at like the most very vague term in their capital plans, it's pretty limited. And I think it's been a win for them to get that. So I think some communities do have essentially policies where they won't replace natural gas with, fossil fuels. So I've seen in Lexington and Arlington, they've done a lot of great retrofits. And in meeting with their facility staff, they are doing that because that's the policy of the community. And so, yeah, I think putting up guardrails and like real systems on how decisions get made is really important. I wish that could happen in Natick. I think politically it would be really hard, and I think that's probably true in a lot of communities. But I totally agree.
Go ahead,
Thank you.
Tom. Oh, sorry. Were you finished, Badri? Or?
Yes, I have. Thank you.
Thank you. That was excellent, excellent questions. Tom, go ahead.
So one thing in Wayland, at least, our sustainability staff is now integrated in our buildings department. So they're all kind of chartered to worry about sustainability issues, which is not to say, I mean, we had a recent emergency, boilers failed. They replaced them with gas boilers because that had to be done quickly. But newer buildings are being planned with heat pumps or have been built with heat pumps. And yes, we have this long-range capital plan, and it seems to take maybe 5 years between the time we get it on the capital plan to the time when looks like they're actually going to be installed very soon. So yeah, it's a very long, painful process. Anyway, the question I had for Jillian, I'm really interested in this target marketing and then what happens after that. I didn't get all of the criteria, but generally it sounded like you were going after smaller, simpler houses. And I'm a strong proponent of small single head mini splits as being really cost effective. And I think a problem with that is finding installers who are interested in those smaller jobs. Um, I mean, they obviously want to go after the whole house conversions where they can leverage the 10 grand rebate and, make. So, have you found installers who are interested in smaller jobs is the basic question.
Well, I don't really work directly with installers, right? But I
We're having a problem with your
do
audio, Jill, or I am anyway, with your audio.
see a lot of smaller homes do those kinds of projects, and I guess their work they um
Oops.
Did we lose you, Julian? Jillian, you still there? Oh, dear.
I think we lost her again.
Yeah, it looks like it. I'm not seeing her on the
Yeah.
participant list. Well, she gave it the college try here. She came back with the phone. Oh, maybe
Yeah, she's back.
I am so sorry for being so difficult today.
Not at all.
I was just saying that I know that the Laminar Collective has experience doing a lot of small home installs. And I think now they're doing some of their own installs, but like project managing them. So I do think there's a market for it for smaller homes.
Okay, Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, your comments about the school conversion project and how long it's taken reminded me of from time to time, we get requests for adopting heat pumps in larger buildings. They could be houses of worship, or for sure, when we in this partnership with Watertown, there are some large residential buildings, and that's a whole different game. It's not something where we think volunteer coaches can uh, help very much on the technical side. That you need a professional engineering firm, and it seems to me that knowing collecting data from folks like you and Andrea Becerra and Acton, who's done a commercial scale heat pump conversion, about who does the engineering. I mean, that'll be step one for a lot of these larger building conversions. Was it? And can you comment on your experience in finding an engineering firm for that school project who knew something about heat pumps at that scale?
Yeah, I would say that I think there's getting to be a good amount of engineers out there who know commercial heat pumps. In Massachusetts, at least, there's a lot of work that's been done through the colleges in Massachusetts that were cited as examples in responses to the RFPs that we've put out. For our library project, we didn't have to do an RFP for that project for some reason. I don't really remember in terms of like finding, like working on the design for that. I think that was part of a EverSource grant. And then for our Benham project, this is a school project. Because the project was going to be over, I think $1.5 million, we had to follow state procurement law, and we had to hire an owner's project manager and and then a designer, and now we're at the general contractor stage. So you're right; it gets a lot more complex from both a design perspective, of an operation perspective, and then also project management and procurement perspective, because there's a lot more rules you have to follow when there's more money being spent. So I think for our designer for Benham, we had, I want to say, 6 or 7 responses to our request for proposals, and they were all really strong. And then I would also say that a good resource for communities is to look will be the MSBA's Accelerator Repair Program. They assign communities OPMs for that program, but then communities, I think, are also, yeah, we're also going to be, I believe, no, I think we do a procurement for a designer. Either way, there'll be a pretty big list of designers working on heat pump installation or designs for schools in Massachusetts coming out, because I think there was, like, I want to say 50. There's a very high number of communities selected to be part of the heat pump conversion program through the Accelerator Repair Program. And those were just announced on Halloween of last year. And so those projects are getting started with design this year.
Okay, thank you. I'm not familiar with the acronym MSPA. At least that's.
MSBA, yeah,
Yeah.
that's the Massachusetts School Building Authority. So
Okay.
they help pay for, well, we pay taxes, and they take those taxes and help pay for new school buildings and repair programs. Previously,
Thank
they
you.
only did like roofs and boilers and windows, and now they're no longer doing boilers. They are only doing heat pumps.
And just to point out, Fran just put in chat a long list of engineering firms and other firms that might be useful to know about. So you may want to copy Fran's list there. Thank you for that, Fran. Okay, we need to close out here. Jillian, thank you so much. That was obviously a very well appreciated talk. Sorry for the technical glitches, but thank you for being persevering through all that.
Thank you for having me, and thank you again for all that you guys do. Like, you guys are really important players in this transition to clean energy, and I'm so grateful for you. So thank you.
Thank you.